Friday, everyone. Welcome to Dojo number 276. It is November 14th, which happens to be my son's birthday. So, Ira, I love you, son. You're my pride and joy. If there's any new faces in here, I'd like you to know that you can raise your hand anytime you want to speak. There's a reaction, but underneath the reaction icon, you will find a raised hand. Raise that, and we will call on you in the order that you raise your hand. Been a very busy week for myself personally, as I know it has been for everyone.
Oh, wait. Sorry.
No problem. Good to see you, James, Lauren, Sarah, Clinton, Brad, everyone here, including a few faces that I don't recognize. Also, if it's your first time, we understand, but we do encourage anyone who, especially if they want to speak, to go ahead and be seen if you're able to do so, and we would appreciate that. Really powerful episode yesterday, James, and today as well on so many levels. It's
Thank
good to
you.
see you.
Thank you. This week, I don't feel like I've really been fully engaged in content creation. I've been editing videos and whatnot, and yeah, I appreciate that. There's just a lot going on, man. There's just a lot out there happening wise. The solar flare, I didn't get to talk about that today, but even the even the solar flare that's happening is really interesting and fascinating. I don't know if this is true, but I saw a video in South America of it was like 11/11 was coming up on the time frame, and all the village, all the power went out, and it was timed to 11/11. I again, it could have been someone just faking that. I didn't have time to like verify it, but it was really cool. The serendipities are just off the charts, even if they're made up. It's been making me think that. The AI stuff is really more important than we think. The AI is going to give uh, credence to allow more impossible things to happen, if this makes sense. So, like, if you can imagine that impossible things are happening, it would be easier for impossible things to happen. I know I say this all the time, forgive me, but the 4 minute mile, why does it why is it for hundreds of years no one can run faster than a 4 minute mile? And then the 1 year it happens, four guys do it. Like what why is that? Why are crystals farmed faster the first time you learn to farm a unique chemical inset? All these things like that. And so when you're dealing with a society that's running this fast, maybe even 218 years left, maybe, and the singularity is coming this much quicker, you would need a higher resolution time, which we seem to have. But then you would also need a much higher caliber ability for people to believe things that are impossible. I include Bluebeam in this. I include the idea that you could say that you would want to insert an AI so that you could then have something like a Bluebeam and you could fake it all. Or another way of looking at it is that organically you would want to create a Bluebeam collectively, but only after enough people have enough tools to believe what is impossible. And this is more where I'm at. It's a much more optimistic. I realize that you can criticize that if you need to, but it's a much more optimistic idea of understanding the technology belief that we would actually need something to completely negate rational belief. I see, therefore it existed. Seeing is believing is a tenet of an old world, and that you would need something like AI to destroy that structure to allow you to leave the realm of objectivity and enter into a realm of possibility of imagination. And this is such a different, profound, honestly terrifying, honestly dangerous, honestly incredibly volatile time. And that this is why we've never taken off. We've never been able to truly gamble with how volatile it is. Maybe in the 15th century, maybe in the 16th century, excuse me, maybe in that time when we were throwing down more into witchcraft, maybe eras before that, but we didn't have enough rational uh, psychic energy, I think, to fully engage both of these chambers, but now we do. Now both of those chambers are directly proportional to how much of a belief gets off the ground. This is Arthur C. Clarke. This is, this is the space program. This is all the black magic of Jack Parsons combined together to where no one's doing this to deceive anyone. This is all absolutely organically necessary to uh, break into places that have to pop open seals that have never been opened before. So it's a big time.
I think we agree here that NASA, while we look at all of the lies they've spread, it is actually a form of white magic as opposed to black magic because they put everything
Mm.
out on the face. And yeah, we need to see things to believe. There must be a ring to resonate to,
Yep.
and it comes to that Pied Piper call. And yes, with AI as well, without needing someone to bite and claw their way to a 4 minute mile over the whole course of humanity, like you can actually create it visually in a system that already understands or that's been trained to understand 3D modeling and create visual imagery that is as believable as it's actually more titillating than the material world, even though it comes from a screen. And I think it could end up being past all the pitfalls. There's certain there. I mean, yeah, it can really help us make these leaps. I agree with that. Um,
I think the pitfalls are even harder, not because they're worse, not because there's more, but because we can see them. And honestly, the only reason why we were able to run as fast uh, is because we could not see them, or we didn't have a consciousness that was so uh, desperate
I agree.
that understood how important it was.
I think the belief that we were past magic is how we were able to entertain white magic like NASA in the first place. I think now
Yeah,
that we are
precursor.
past entertaining it, we are trying to put our hands back in it. And again, uh, it's a power that's always been here and present. And I'm not trying to say that anything is or isn't anything. Well, I'm not trying to say NASA has not done or has done. That's beside the point, frankly. But it gets.
Yeah, it really is. In fact, it could be, Cameron, that it, reality. I'm not trying to sound fancy, but reality is sort of caramelized over time. And it could be that we're just seeing how it actually comes out of the strainer. We're just more honestly able to look at most of everything is conjecture. 50% of all scientific research, if it's repeated in another lab, fails. They're not able to do it, right? Typically, the length of a paper, a dissertation, has about a 20-year shelf life, and then for some whatever reason, statistically, it seems to be disproven. So the fabric of reality itself is we could say it's changed because it's changed how we've looked at it, but ultimately it's always been this way. We've just never had the cojones to view it, to speculate it as such, to have an impression that we weren't really doing it. We just really believed we were doing something. And all it takes is a few people really believing that's possible for you to pull off a triple gainer. Like when I was a kid, if you could jump over a garbage can and that garbage can was laid down on a bicycle, that was a huge deal. I don't, I'm not telling you it wasn't just me. Lori's nodding. I swear, if you knew any kid around who could do that, that was enough. That was like fucking epic. It really was. That was so impressive. You could jump over sticks, you could jump over each other. That was always fun. But doing a whole trash can was just insane. Then if you're doing like two or three, and then by high school, I had a friend that was jumping over a 280Z the long way. And that's a very small car, but that was huge. This was the biggest thing around. That guy was a pro skater, by the way. It's like that's all he had to do. You just had to jump over a 280Z. At the time, it was fucking impossible. And now, if you're looking at, like, look at what they're jumping over now. It's the exact same psyche. My psyche is still amazed by that. Tony Hawk is still alive. The deacon of that belief system is still here, still showing you things. Sure, he innovates himself, but where he came from was a world where I don't think people could have even watched you do a Mick twist, I think he called it. Like when I was in seventh grade, I don't think that we had the capacity to see something like that. like to fathom it, because it would ruin all of the progress that we would get to drink until we got there. It would ruin that. It would turn it supernatural rather than uh surnatural, like surreal. Like it's the step between supernatural and natural is sort of this surnatural kind of a place. And you can't over gaslight, right? You have to gaslight society just enough to where they can fill in the gaps and give it the concrete structure it needs to be real. But that realness will only be seen 20 years later. That's all I got.
James, love that. Lori, it's great to see you. Thanks for raising your hand. What's up?
Well, I was kind of on fire after that live, James. And I'm wondering, um, like I think that the balance and how do you have all this research and putting it all together and know and absolutely know, because I know nothing is broken. So it's never been more revealed. So the way you were revealing it, and then I think really what got me was the interview with the Fuentes. Um, and then I was kind of looking at like the brokenness of what happened in our in my, my cosmology of the masculine and feminine. We were like told that we could just have it all. Like as a woman, yeah, you have your kids, you go to work, you do it all, and then you fucked up everything. And then, the man, then they get thrown, out with the trash with the women's liberation movement that was actually an evolution in consciousness. So it was all like an evolution. So we're having this another great evolution in consciousness. And I really think that the divine masculine and feminine coming together within union within yourself as your sacred union with yourself. And then like with others that are, so like looking at this culture of kids. I mean, I can only, my zetetic experience is I have a bunch of grandchildren. I have a breeder daughter. That's what she was called when she started breeding. All that generation, all those gamer people, they were calling her a breeder. And this was 4 years ago. This is before digital cameras. Calling my daughter the breeder. She is the breeder. She's bred for all of them, and none of them had any children. 10 of them, right? And one of them is non-binary, and she had to leave the breeder cult because how do you fit in there, right? So I'm watching this, but the whole time these kids, none of them dated. Not like we were. You were talking about that, those hormones, and I was dancing with the Mad Hatter in the Hamptons on a bar to Twisted Sister at 16. I was this crazy ass, like whatever. But and they're like just, these different type of people that are not motivated by their hormones. There's something happened. I don't know what it was, culturally, environmentally. I don't know. Or they just came in like that. But I think that there's nothing broken. So I'm wondering, how do we get back into a balance within ourselves and know that what they're trying to do is take the sacred out of union from all unions, sacred out of all unions. Like, we have this, whatever the union of the states, and now like, well, that's divided. And then there was a union and European Union, and then that's like, so it's like, well, if they could take the division out of the two. So then I've been kind of looking at, I know I'm talking a lot, but I think it's all related. Okay. So I was kind of like putting my finger on the pulse of watching the young person. Then, when it was, we were the first generation that had the gap, generation gap. So there was this disunion within, the 50s parenting and the 60s crazy flower children, psychedelics. And then, I was looking, well, now we have this other one where, I'm kind of watching the 20 something year olds. I'm kind of interested in them. And they're telling that, reports from the field, and we don't have to bring anybody here. I just keep an eye out on everything on what's with the 20s. And they're thinking they have it all the answers. They think they're coming in at 8K and that, we have such low resolution that we can't see nothing. So it's kind of like we're at this like level of like uh ununion. And then it's like, so I kind of put it together when I was listening to your thing about the goy and the goyim. And, you know, I had a Jewish boyfriend that called me a goy. I thought it was like a compliment. It really wasn't a compliment. It's actually not a compliment. And because you're not the chosen one, you know, you're a kind of like almost an unhuman, or not the chosen one anyway. So I just look at the whole thing and I'm thinking, how do we get back into like seeing how it's not broken, and how do we make it as a solution to go forward? And that is the question.
This is really great, Lori. I appreciate you sharing all that. I hope you don't mind I just jumping in, Cameron, but I wanted to say, if you if you integrate your animus and anime, and you live in a culture that has a fertility cult, they're going to call you gay for doing that. They're going to call you a tomboy. They're going to call you homosexual, whatever it is. It's going to be an inflammation against that, and that would look like the 70s. Like it would look like that. It would start to come out, and then wouldn't be talked about. First there's denial, then there's acceptance, but only within a certain tiny percent, and then the percent grows in silence. And then meanwhile everything in your culture around you is being fed to you by the same thing anyway, but it's just you're masking yourself, and you're remaining outside of that because you're preserving a tradition that you've been taught is important, because it is. You epigenetically been mind controlled to think the American way is important, and it is. It's you've been mind controlled because someone cared. Someone cared about you, and what worked. It's really is a recipe of, hey, here's what worked. Here's what worked. Okay, I need you to wear frilly things. I need you to look for a guy that has hair on his face, and I want you to engage in coitus. And when you do that, I want you to build a hut. I want you to make it out of dirt. I want you to have shingles on the roof. I want you to have electricity. And so it's just that, right? It's just here are the instructions, and you can make it. And it's going to look like peer pressure. And the thing that the shaman has trouble with, sorry, some of you may don't like that label, but you are. The thing that you're going to struggle with is that you're looking at culture and you're wondering why they're so backwards, but they're not backwards, they're just behind. They're preserving the things that they've been taught to preserve because that's important. And the biological memory is the only way to change that biological memory is through peer pressure. Is is through cultural shaming. It's through Kim Davies. It's through showing that picture of this lady that's like, no one's gonna get married. Yeah, no. And by showing that, by 10 million people showing that, people start to remove their altar of fertility and changing it into an altar of anima animus. And the first thing that's going to fall is the sacred nature of fertility itself. It's the first thing that's going to topple. It doesn't mean sacredness is dead. It doesn't mean the sacredness of fertility is dead. If anything, it actually means fertility becomes more sacred because it's not surrounded with a bunch of fucking Costco's where people are just, whether or not they want to be there or not, they've been told you have to go through the mall to get to the cookie place. You got to go through Sears. And Sears is going to be like, look at how important we are. And you're not fucking important. You're in the way. You're in the way, Sears. You're literally in the fucking way. And I think this is probably a better way of understanding this. And it's the perfect lesson of understanding peer pressure. It's the perfect lesson of understanding why am I afraid of being if I want to support the pride movement, someone might think I'm gay. That feeling, if you've had the luxury of feeling the peer pressure of something like that, is absolutely the most gorgeous thing that's come online that I don't think we've really been able to have a relationship with in a tangible, like movable way, where we can actually feel shame and go, hey, I want to fix that. I don't want to feel shamed by that, or I want to analyze. And then you need so the symbiosis is there more than ever, Lori. It's not that we've lost this. In fact, it's gotten worse because now we are so socially tuned into the shame quotient of the symbiosis because it comes in through likes, through loves, through shares, through I'm no longer following you, through I'm following you. All of these are real life peer pressure that's tuning us more the traditional person has to fight harder for it. And the ones that end up with it are dopers too. They're fertility dopers. And we need them. We need the people that are like against all the odds of everyone who's saying I should not. I want to be a trad wife. I want to be a trad husband. And now they get to actually compete in an atmosphere where only the professionals are in that realm, where only those. So, in a way, it's better. In a way, it's more honest. It could even be, we're going to have a shitload less abuse. Why? Because people who should not be having kids are not just going to, oh, someone's going to like me more if I go get this lady pregnant. And you're not really there, but you're just doing what everyone else is telling you to do. It's kind of like being in the army and you realize only like 1.6% of these people are actually patriotic. Honestly, the rest are just like, I don't know how to dress myself. I don't fucking know how to eat. I don't know how to take care of myself. I get drunk too much. So it cleans it up in a lot of ways. It makes it more important, but it makes everyone more focused on look at all these different options I have. I don't think that we're embracing the options yet. I think that politics is always going to be the last, the very least, the one that's way behind the most. And those people are going to be run the most by these fountainheads that are just there to lie to you. They're just there to tell you it's about this and it's about that. And that's where the ICE shit comes from. That's where the Nazi shit comes from. That's where all the laws comes from. It comes from the very fucking back. The very fucking back. And those people are terrified. And, I'm guilty because I'm like, can we go back and choke some of those fuckers? Like I'm always doing that. I'm always like, James, yeah. And sometimes I'm just like, it's a let's go choke them episode. It is because that's how I feel sometimes. But ultimately, that's been the greatest form of shame in me not understanding where people are, right? If you're just getting into that, if you're just finding MAGA, if you're just red pilling, I don't want to fuck with that. I have a lot of faith in that. You know, there's like there's a lot there. So that's all I got on this.
I mean, the red pilling, I think it's very um very wise of you, or I should not, that's not the word I'm looking for. I'm trying to look for a word that where you're able to step back and trust in the process, which I use that recently, and I don't like to use. I use that with the groupers, and I don't like to use that. It reminds me of um, the movement. I can't think of the name anymore. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble with my words. When you asked how it wasn't broken, Lori, that's where I find it's the Pied Piper's call that things are broken. Whenever I get around here locally in my community, I'm kind of a homebody, and but I have a couple of kids that force me to get out, and everybody I work with around here, it's always about something constructive. There's something that needs to be done, and I get together with people around here, and we're working towards something together. Now, on the other hand, my relationship with media, especially for the 7 years prior to 2020, all the way. I feel like I took a little bit of a sabbatical, but since James has been activated, it's been more on my radar. And there have always been issues for me, but all of the movements that activated me since, I mean, Alex Jones, or even the news before that, they're more anti-movements, and James has covered all of this stuff very thoroughly. So I'm really somewhat really just reiterating, but I
I don't know if it was MGTOW. I don't know if that was the word you were thinking of, Cameron. And
no, I
maybe
was trying to think of the of Steve Bannon's
QAnon.
anonymous
QAnon.
QAnon. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I can't believe it was so hard for me to come up with that. But that when I was thinking trust the process, there was some
Yes.
sort of call from QAnon to
Yeah.
trust in the process, and
And it was
whenever
actually, yeah, it even, you could even look at that as it was a call for patriotism again, in a way. It was a call for, look, there's a white hat. He's going to ring a golden bell. You're going to know when it happens. Everything's going to be okay. And that's permission to even believe in something again. So it's really complicated. I brought up MGTOW because it just occurred to me. This is a perfect example of how would you sever a fertility cult. is you would have a bunch of people in this movement called MGTOW, which I forget what that stands for, but it's red pill men specifically, really specifically red pilled white men that are like, I don't want to be a trad man, and they're defining what a trad man is. And guys, I
It's
don't,
uh
if
it's men go their own way. Sorry,
no,
James.
thank you, yeah, yeah, exactly. You're defining your own path. Thank you, Trevor. And that this movement, it looks very solitary. It's destroying the sanctity of symbiosis, and it would enhance symbiosis later because when that MGTOW comes back, he's going to be actualized. And when he's actualized, he's going to be bringing something to the table that's he never been able to bring before. If you look at I'm not trying to discount the trad wife role. I'm just saying that as a trad male, that role is a very unpersonal role. You're not really supposed to be a person. You're supposed to sort of be like a pickup truck. Like the traditional male is the guy that can go move lumber around, that has a lot of free time on his hand, and that gets off on impressing people with his ability to produce things, to produce money, to produce utility, and that's because his self-worth requires that he brings something to the table. And so MGTOW was the first of, well, why can't I just have self-worth? Why can't I just do that? And you know who gave him that idea? I think feminism. I think feminism was the one that broke the ceiling that said, hey, fuck this, man. Fuck this place. I'm not a we invented the word breeder. That word never used to be a word. And when I first heard that, I remember getting hit in the face with the word breeder. I was like, wow, what a word. It just had never occurred to me that was a mode. That's where I was in my psyche. It never. It was just, yeah. If you're a woman, you're going to be pregnant at some point. And if I'm seeing you and you're not pregnant, it's because either you were pregnant when I wasn't looking, or you're going to be pregnant when I turn around. And hey, maybe I could even be a part of that. And it was just all. That was the entire. I swear to you, that was the entire reality. I remember learning that there's something called menopause. I'm like, what do you mean you can't? What? What? What are you talking about? That's insane. Come on. No way it works that way. So all of this is you could not look at a better, more healthy compost. I swear to fuck. All the stuff, even the Nazism, which sucks, because Nazism is showing you how far behind these people are and how they're not going to make it. They're not going to make it, and they're going to have to torture some other people until they finally realize I have to let go because not enough people are letting us torture people right now. We can't do this as easily as we could in Germany. I guarantee you the Groypers is not going to go very far, and it's only going to be because of this. It's because we're trying to run on scapegoatism, and that's the same kind of problem that these fucks were running on behind us, and we're trying to get away from them. So this isn't going to be a good solution for that. I don't think it's going to be better, but I do see forward progress, and it's going to just get more karaoke, not less, more greasy, more raw, not less. And this is my cross to bear because I want to just keep looking at the jungle. And I'm proud of myself because this is good. I really do feel for the Groiper. I'm proud of them in a funny kind of. I'm proud of their little peepee. I'm proud of that. Because this is a kind of embrace that Black culture did. They taught us that. They taught that Groiper, this modern era. Here's how you do that. You're not going to be into fertility, but you're going to embrace the fact that you're not into fertility. Those are two very powerful things. The first involves more let's scapegoat someone. The second is more I embrace how fucked up this is, and that's a healthy sign of energy. Thanks.
Hey, Cameron, can I just comment on your trust the process before you call in Sarah?
Yes.
When I started the great work, um, I started with a certain things that I had to agree to. And so I had like a list of maybe four things. It wasn't much, but it was about going in and doing this inner work. And at the level of that inner work, you have to get to this place where you trust the process because your programs won't trust the process. So I don't really think that that's a bad thing at all. So the trusting the process has gotten me to a place that I have I mean, I couldn't have got there if I hadn't trusted the process, but the process isn't a human process. It's not sitting there eating popcorn. So I think everything in this kind of whatever this movement is taken some really good, like shamanic, when you're going through a shamanic initiation, you trust the process, you know, it's just like, that's why you did it. This is a hermetic journey, and the process is to be trusted above everything else. So I just wanted to give that before you moved on. Thanks.
Yeah, no, yeah, thank you for that, Lori. And sometimes nostalgia causes me to look back on the past, and I'll see these moments where what was is demolished, and I don't feel like anything, a grander vision took its place. And but that's usually, I think, a nostalgia that taints that. Uh, James has recently, I had to wrestle with the word edgelord when James kind of felt how that fit on himself and talked about wanting to see the world burn. And then I got to say that the aurora borealis is very timely in that sense, to where I could trust the process and watch the world burn and see how beautiful it was. It was a really powerful moment for me, and being rewarded for a little bit of trust in the process. Sarah, thank you for waiting while I said that. Go ahead.
Yes, first on the note of Lori saying her Jewish boyfriend called her a goy. The whole term is kind of interesting. In Torah, the term goy means nation. Israel itself was called Goy Kadosh, holy nation. And at some point along the line, I don't know when, it became a derogatory term for a non-Jew. The more standard derogatory term for a non-Jewish woman, when you're the girlfriend of a Jewish man, and his family may have called you this, is shiksa. So I don't know if you've heard that, but you were probably called that too. Um, and then I'm thinking into this whole idea of fertility cult. And I look to nature and I see everywhere fertility and abundance. Whether, of course, bunnies, and then there's Easter, which is based on Ishtar, the fertility goddess, and bunnies and eggs, and it's all a fertility festival, really. And I'm amazed when I look at a seed pod, and there are thousands of seeds per seed pod in a vegetable or a flower, or I harvested some Japanese cedar, and each little tiny cone had all these seeds in it. There's a forest in every pine cone. And then I look into the fertility rituals of certain animals. I think it's the bird of paradise that does this incredibly beautiful, elaborate dance, a fertility dance to the male does to woo the females, and this is in many species. And then when I think of the ending of the human fertility cult, I think of Monsanto creating seeds that cannot replicate themselves. So I'm um I'm torn on this idea of the ending of the fertility cult, where yeah, I can see the positive aspect of having the option. Oh, and the first time I heard this term breeder was from my homosexual brother and his partner. That not that what do you call it? Just straight straight people are called breeders, straight men and women. I had never heard that before that, and I was definitely taken aback by that term also. So I'm toying around with this idea of the end of fertility. Is that equal to the depopulation things going on that's causing potentially the drop in hormones
Yeah.
and the desire? So I think it's a real potentially a big mixed bag.
I want to clarify what I mean, that when I say the end of the fertility cult, I don't mean that the end of fertility. I mean the end of a society that worships fertility as the central pinnacle of what defines them. And and I'm really glad you brought this up because it gives me a chance to explain. Before the fertility cult, there's a shelter cult that you would own your own home. That the mortgage industry was just proof of a shelter cult. That this was a cult that wasn't quite ready for marriage, but if you were to have a domicile of some kind, of patriarchy itself, this is a culture built on your ability to possess land, to defend land, to hold on to land for a year will give you secret powers. You would measure the analema. You'd be able to see things others couldn't. And before that shelter cult, you would have a food cult, a farming cult, a culture of farmers. And we have a long history of that. In fact, most Neanderthals were practicing grain and fat processing plants, things like that. That this is one of the oldest forms of. So it's not that you stop eating when you cease to be a farm cult. It's not that you stop surviving when you cease to be a survival cult, because a clan would be maybe a survival cult, like the one that doesn't have farming yet, but you're just out on the steppe trying to survive. You're a wolf man. You're a berserker. You're someone living in that realm. That's a cult of survival. And so each of these cults will honor and choose the archetype that it wants to worship during that era so that it'll survive the most. None of them are supposed to be a replacement. It's just more of where do we put our egoric energy? Where do we put our fame? We want our fame to go somewhere so it'll collectively feed the civilization. That fame used to be in fertility. It used to be in shelter. It used to be in food. It used to be in survival. But I think the abundance, it's not that we're cutting something away. I think we have abundance. And the abundance is ready to go into the next chakra, the next Sephiroth, the next whatever it is. You could call this an identity cult, the cult of self, the cult of finding an identity of a genre cult instead of a gender cult, a genre cult, to where sexuality itself becomes so it's not really necessarily a moving away from fertility. It's more of an integrating of fertility to where this self, the identity yourself becomes you're your own gender. The only time man and woman would work is if they are breeding. If they're breeding, this makes sense. It's a parody thing. It's a who's dancing, who's leading the dance, who's following the dance, things like that. It's a mode of operation, basically. And this is really what the sexual revolution has been about. It's been more about, can we uncouple our identity from this thing and just call it a genre? And the answer is no, you can't do that. No, 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 no. We're going to pass a bunch of laws. And slowly over time through culture have we been able to loosen that grip and see where we are now. So again, I think it'll make fertility more, give it more sanctity, not less. But it just looks really, really violent right now. Thanks.
Thanks.
Absolutely, James. And Sarah, to agree with you, I also found fertility cold and breeder. Those were incendiary terms to me when I heard them. Um, but just to second what James says, yes, I think that for so long, having kids hasn't even been an act of saying yes. And it took people to make it expensive and to make it hurt to really have, for us to come to a time where uh, it's we appreciate how expensive of a choice it is to have children and to procreate or to breed and to follow through with it with a little bit of impetus. Becca Dickens, thank you for raising your hand. I don't know if you should look familiar, but you do to me. But if you've never been here before, please introduce yourself, and it's wonderful to have you.
Thank you for calling on me. Yeah, this is my first time here. You look familiar to me too, Cameron, so some dimension we've met. Talking about the nothing being broken, I've been having a practice lately. The work I do on myself is when I get really activated about seeing something broken in the world, it is a signal to me that I have to work on that in myself. This is a very hard practice because it's so satisfying to get mad about something in the world and to shake my fist and to feel righteous indignation, but it's so hard to look at that in myself and about how human sexuality is changing. I look at young people. I never had children. I never wanted to have children and never accidentally got pregnant, luckily. But I was super driven by, I don't know, love or sex or something as a young person. And when I noticed, like my nieces and nephews were that they don't date the same way I did, they don't chase that romance the same way I did, I thought, oh, that's so wonderful. Like, imagine what I could have done with all of that energy and intellect I had when I was 20 years old. And if I wasn't just wasting so much time on complicated love affairs. But then I look at what they're doing and that's where I see something that people are doing something wrong. I think they're wasting their time on social media, like and stupid political causes and arguing with people on the internet. Like the young people are wasting their time. Why aren't they, doing if they're not going to have sexual energy, why aren't so when I do that, then I just have to look at myself. And thank goodness all of that drive or sex addiction or whatever it was when I was younger has subsided. And so now I have the chance and this still active brain and intellect and passion for life. And so now I can do all those what incredible things would I do if I'm not a young person on social media or chasing guys? And the same thing, let this be my introduction about wanting to join this. I've been watching James True content as well as this dojo and airships for some time, at least all summer. And I really like you all and admire you. And at other times, I judge you. And finally, recently, it started to feel so unbalanced that I would be watching you and so intensely judging and evaluating your conversations and these deep philosophical conversations without putting myself up for judgment. So this is the work for myself, is that I want to subject myself to what I've subjected you to. And I hope that you will be charitable. I know you will. Thank you.
I'm judging you so hard right now. It's great. Seriously, thanks for coming. Great chair, by the way.
Absolutely, Becca, and wonderful to have you. And I can relate to living and negotiating with with a libidinous person, and everything that entails that, and trying to work in a world where um, uh, it's different, I guess, for everyone. But they're really wonderful to meet you, and thank you for raising your hand and for judging us and me while we put ourselves out here to be judged. I think. Um, uh,
I'd like to say welcome, Becca. I love that chair. I really related to it internally. And I was thinking the Harris Gamos, or the sacred union of like what is more important than a sexual union experience, and that maybe not for fertility but for creation. I mean, that is really like the ultimate of creation. And so I don't think you're ever too old for that. I run it with the sun and the earth. I think that it, it saddens me that my grandchildren never wanted to have like that kind of passion. It's like there's something that saddens me about that. So I really related to your share, and I really love that you're here, and I'm glad you judged the shit out of me. So yeah, it's the highest compliment. Thanks.
Yeah,
wonder.
we say here judgment is important, or at least I do. I try and push that. I think we're supposed to judge each other, and I don't know if we'd be living in a symbiotic relationship if we were trying to suggest that we weren't. And I can only imagine some of the judgments people could have about me in relation to Dojo, or even about cloning recently. Just all those things. It's really interesting exercise that what we're doing with Dojo now, and it being out in public like that. I think it amplifies not just how others could judge you, but that same amplification is read by all of us when we internalize what's happening in the dojo, and how things are unfolding or setting, catching on fire too. And that it's ultimately that fire that that focuses the witness more to where it becomes more potent. I think each of us collectively. So I look forward to you practicing on the mat too, and I hope I'll always be as compassionate as I can. The failures that I feel in dojo are more about I wish I would have brought more calories. It's rarely about here's what I said I wish I wouldn't have said. It's more about I wish I would have had more calories because I wonder what I would have said. I wonder how I would have expressed that feeling if I would have had a little bit more energy at the time. So to me that's where the most fun stuff happens, a la dojo and stuff like that. So I also wanted to just say I feel that way about cis when I'm scrolling through Instagram and I'm watching people and they're like, "Oh, this is a cis bar or something," and I'm just like, "Hey, what the fuck, man? What?" And I'm offended because someone's using the word cis, and I say things about it all the time, and I would get offended at it, and I got to be really straight with you. There's a really hard thing that happens in dojo. I'm constantly telling you guys about I think your sexuality and your fetishes that you have is more akin to your identity than we give credit for. But I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to have a group where we share those things because I think it breaks down the identity and it would be antithetical to you keeping yourself. But I do like to come back to this a lot because when I hear how offended I am by the word cis, and I think it's kind of akin to maybe the word breeder, I've put a lot of thought into that. I've put a lot of identity questing into why do I get so mad about that word cis? And the answer that I've come up with is quite profoundly different than what I thought the answer was going to be when I first started to look at it. And to say as much as I can without penetrating my identity, I think that the reason why I get mad at cis is not because someone's calling me a breeder. It's because I was pretending to be a breeder the whole fucking time. And I was selling myself out and calling myself a failure precisely because I was being authentic to the fact that I wasn't, but I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time. That's what makes me mad about cis. And this is such a complex kind of mind fuck to catch yourself in. Like for me to truly see that about myself, I think took like a lot of calories, like a lot. And I can't expect anyone else to have that much autism, like to throw that much self-analysis at something like that when you could just say that guy's calling me cis because they're a fucking militant lefty or whatever. It would be so much easier just to get off
James,
that trip.
James, what does cis mean?
Cis means that you are basically born in your genre, your gender matches how you feel biologically. You're biological. So cis means you're kind of out of the factory and everything is manufacturer's suggested retail price. Like all the settings come from the factory and the person who's operating it doesn't need to change them. That's basically what cis means. That's all I got. Thanks.
Absolutely. No, yeah, it's a way to alienate a type that has heretofore been considered normative. And I think if I may just speak a little bit to some serendipity, yesterday that had the story about Hitler's micro penis. It was on like when I opened my screen to swipe it, T-Mobile will put a like news headlines, and it was right there. So I screenshotted it. It ended up being what caused me to table a lot of associations with my father yesterday that I have not broached. But because, as we discussed here, if the FBI were to look at my search history, they would consider me probably Groyper adjacent, just because of who I've supported over the years. Even though it's really never been, or well, I don't want to say what's not been my thing or anything, but I felt like I needed to finally table that with him because I don't want us to lose one another in the process of whatever's shaking out here. And so I only bring that up because there is something to do with the importance of this sexual energy as it's spilling over. MGTOW, cis, we're defining what we're not. I think that energy, if it's always been in this part of the chakra or whatever. And I'm speaking off my pay grade when I get into that. So there's other people who can speak on these chakras better than I can, but it's a lot of energy and it's going places and it's like that. It's like what I imagined this picture that James posted of NASA that he got criticized as a globetrot for. Brad, thank you for raising your hand. Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. Yeah, thanks, man. Good to see everybody. Uh, I just wanted to speak to we were talking about the Becky. You were bringing up the younger generation, and I certainly went through that. I got kids, and so that had me greatly concerned with the whole idea of social media and how their experience was going to be going forward. And I one of the things that's giving me peace about that. My son's 18, my daughter's 16, is, and I speak to people in that generation is. I used to have this mindset that and this is my own kids, right? I'm looking at them, and I'm not saying that they're not intelligent, but I see their reaction to the screen in their world, and I'm thinking they're going to be dumb coming into the world, living through that. But what I'm saying is, I speak to people, my son, that generation, they're not dumb. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like they're very aware, but they do spend a lot of time on screen. No two ways about that. But one of the things that helped me sort of not judge too harshly as to what I think may be the negative impact of that, right? Is they've also grown up in a world where I'm in between that. I grew up before social media. Social media came online, and we all have dealt with that. The fact that they've grown up with social media from the rip has actually had them have to face some of the things that we didn't have to face as quickly, in terms of the feeling of being what's the term I'm looking for when we talk about, James, we're talking about atheistic, is the idea that you have privacy. Just the simple fact that they're living in a world where privacy as such has never been a thing for them in that regard. You know what I mean? And so there's an awareness that they have on one hand that we got later. Now, conversely, I also understand and I think all of us did this through the generations. We tend to think at a certain age we know it all. We know better than our parents' generation. We've got it all figured out. And we, in our own experience, I think, have found out that we were naive. That wasn't the case. So I give some grace to the younger generation to know that I don't think they see their blind spots right now. But to be fair, they probably see our blind spots a little clearer, just like we saw cross generationally. So it just all comes back to me sort of because I have, I guess, Gen X. I've had with struggles with my parents' generation, which I guess you call the boomer generation. I've had that dynamic too, where I'm frustrated with them because they just wouldn't see certain things, But being on both sides of that and seeing my dad, who I love very much, my son, and seeing those generations go at it. My dad's just giving my son, your generation's just the worst. You're the lazy. And my son stands his ground. But to see them both go at it, it gives me much more peace with the situation, both sides, because I can look at boomers and complain, say, oh, they're messing everything up. Or I can look at Gen Z and Gen Alpha and say, oh, they're going to mess everything up. But I'm just telling you, it's like I think that it's so easy to look outside of our experience and see the spots that we don't see, but not be able to understand what actually, the benefits of that at the same time. So I think you get what I'm saying in terms of them growing up with social media. That's going to have an impact on them for sure, but it's probably going to be just like technology. It'll be positive and negative, and it'll be on them to kind of balance how they use that. And the last thing I'll say in terms of the cis and all that, for me personally, going through my experience, I post-puberty, because I'm not, I guess, typically alpha male breed, I struggled a lot with being called effeminate and being thought gay. So I struggled for many years of why do I feel like I've never been attracted to men in a sexual way at all. But at the same time, I'm not alpha. So it's like well, my point is just this, that it bothered me that people thought I was gay when I was like, I'm not gay, but I didn't have an identity that was okay with being straight, but also not being alpha. And so by the time sort of cis came around, I think that's why I maybe was a little bit inoculated from that, is because I fought for so many years of being thought gay. I had to struggle through that to be okay with that. So, but that's all I got now. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Brad. Anybody have anything to say on what Brad shared?
I went through the same thing, Brad, and I was really just didn't understand why certain activities were masculine and others were feminine. Like it's kind of amazing how many are considered that way, and you you struggle with that because you just want to have fun, man. You just want to live your life and just, and have a good time. And when I was in college, I was in student government, and uh, a group came up and said, we want to start a gay lesbian student union. It was the first anything like that had ever been done. This was not common at all. It was really the first thing that ever happened. And I remember being projects chair and being like, well, yeah, you just fill out this form. And I remember turning around and going, what's wrong with, why is everyone freaking out over this? I mean, yeah, this is what you do. You come to the projects department and you're like, we want to start a boat club. And now you're a boat club. Here's the form. You want to start a parking lot club. Here's a parking lot club. You want to start a gay lesbian, but it meant I had to be gay. I had to be gay in order to approve it. Now me, I had already gone through this gauntlet. I was in a boys choir. Holy fuck. Talk about being called gay all the time. Like there's nothing else you could, like I'm meeting the Queen of England. I'm singing with Tina Turner and I'm gay. And I'm like, okay, guys, whatever you fucking say, so it was easy. I had a lot of practice. But even then in college, noticing why do I have to be gay to just fucking hand someone a form? Like but I realized everyone who was against this, I don't think they were against it. I think they were afraid of the association. The association was so terrifying to them that it ends up creating an abhorrence, and people feed on abhorrence. People will come and lead an abhorrence brigade and be, I'm more abhorred by gay people than you are. And then you end up with a very uh, effective pecking order, which allows you to establish dominance, which would allow you to build things like toxic masculinity. I don't think you'd be able to have a term called toxic masculinity unless you had a system of how much I hate gay people. I think those two are the same. They end up being that, and that's why I think most Republicans have grinder accounts. I don't mean this like insulting. It's just like this is why you have a party that's so focused on being the last people that anyone's going to think is gay because they're fucking gay. Like that's all. That's all. But you know what? When I was younger, Brad, I don't know if you'd agree with this or not. I literally just had to be gay. What I mean is that if I wanted to do what's correct for the student projects chair, I just had to be called gay. And I was like, okay, it's not the first time.
Yeah.
It's not the
I
last
didn't get
time,
there.
but I still have to do this. So I'm just going to be called gay now. And honestly, people were calling me gay for a long time. And it was just like, okay, whatever. And sometimes after a while, you just stop. You're just not even interested in it. Meanwhile, I was fucking horn dog. Like, fuck, man. Like massive horn dog. I was a male cheerleader in college. That was called gay. I don't like because it sounds like I sound very perverted when I'm about to say, guys, I don't think you understand how you get to touch guys. If you like women, fucking be a male. I'm sorry, but be a fucking male cheerleader. I'm just I don't know how else to say it. And the whole time I'm like, how can you call me gay? Like, do you understand the things I touch? Like, look at my hand. This should be shrined in gold. The things that I have touched with this hand. So it was always so retardedly backwards to me, Brad, that it wasn't able to do the damage to me because it was just so antithetical to like going to touching boob and like going places and meeting people. It's like, well, okay, that's fine, man. That's fine. So, it ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy, but for the other people in a way, for the people that are end up losing out because they have to just insist that this is the pecking order. That's all fertility cult. I swear to you. That's nothing but fertility cult. It's not even hateful people. It's people that are in a fertility cult. It doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it's bad. Okay? You could be in a cult and it's totally great. I swear to fuck. Cults are awesome. But it just means you didn't know that was the psyche helmet that was on top of you. That's all it means. And in fact, you can be more fertilitous if you take off the hat and then go to the fertility. Like you're going to be more fertility that way. I'm just repeating myself, but yeah.
Your hand raised, James, after Lauren. If that ends up being the case again, I'll call you in that order. But yeah, no, if you like girls, I think being a male cheerleader is a good option. If you like guys or physicalism, wrestling, that's what my family did. I got some harassment about being gay, but it was interestingly enough from the other side. I have a creative group, and I had to endure campaigns about being gay. I don't know why, but that was after high school, and it was it was at the same group would make me watch documentary videos because I was a person who was saved and came from a church group about like the horrible mental child abuse that goes on in the church camps and stuff. It's a lot it can be a lot to endure, certainly, whenever you're trying to coalesce with a structure. And but Lauren, thank you for your patience. Good to see you. Glad you raised your hand. Go ahead. Lauren, you appear to be unmuted, but I am not hearing anything.
Yeah, same here.
Suppose now I'll have to get into some of the details of what I mentioned at some point. But
She's still muted. You
yeah, she is still muted. I'm sorry, Lauren. I don't know if you heard me. I think she is trying to correct it, actually.
okay.
Okay, well, Sarah, why don't I go ahead and call on you while Lauren tries to get that figured out. Thank you, Lauren, for patience. Please keep that hand raised, and if we can get to you, we will certainly do that. Sarah, go ahead.
I was just going to share, talking about these gender-based ideas of activities. When I was a kid, and I grew up with two brothers. I had my Barbies and my trolls, which I made my own clothes for, of course. And I played in the dirt with Tonkas and matchboxes with them. I climbed trees. I was really into collecting insects. And so I've really and I like my brother's hand-me-downs. He had this great turquoise plaid shirt, and I still love things like that. And I loved work boots, and I've always kind of been all over the place, and I never had an issue with it. I never felt like I'm a boy or even a tomboy. It's just what I liked. And still I call it I'll call it my inner macho. I prefer driving a stick shift. I really like the ability that I have to build things and fix things and repair things, which can be considered masculine. I love that I have a closet with tools and power tools, and I like being all of this. I've never been into super girly things of like painting my nails and eyelashes and all of that all the time, but I've never been, I don't know, just who I am, all of these, and never felt self-conscious for any of it.
That's a nice.
Yeah.
Sounds like very nice. It sounds like I would almost call it a luxury. That was my first instinct to call that a luxury, but I know we all have our trials in one way or another. We all end up having to
Yeah, my father
deal with
taught me
those.
how to tune up my own car. My first car was a 66 Mustang. It was a lot easier then to do your own oil changes and tune up your car. And I always liked having those abilities.
I've found here at home, even though it has really has not been stressed. Although 7 or 8 years ago, whenever Alex Jones was getting all that mileage out of that library storytime initiative, where the people like with the scary stuff were doing this storytime, I was angry about that, and it took a while really to see what James also has helped to show is that both sides, or well, I'd say actually the side that's anti-transition and transgender movement is probably working more aggressively to sexualize children ultimately than the transgender movement is, even if they're trying to do it in a way that they seek to conserve what has been. Um, I and as far as I mentioned someone with a campaign, and it was a personal one, not I say campaign, it wasn't like the whole world's got to believe that you're gay. It was a friend who was always trying to tell me, that I was gay. That same person, when he was married, his wife, actually got small shirts for their a daughter that she got with her wife when she got remarried. That was like pro story time, the pro like story time, like it was an advertisement for the transgender story time hour. And I was just like, what the heck? I could not understand that they were just I think purposely being incendiary, maybe, or that's the way I took it at that time. But as we I've come a long way since then, and I really am around to the point where Lori is, that nothing is broken, and that um yes, it's been what a wild ride, and happy to be on the ride still. Lori, thank you for raising your hand, and Sarah, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that, and uh I don't necessarily feel like that was a part of my life, but I'm glad to hear that. I love tomboys. My wife is a little bit of a tomboy, and I appreciate that. But thank you, Lori, and thank you, Sarah. I mean, and Lori, go ahead.
Hey, Sarah, I just wanted to show you. I have my trolls, and they're dressed up. So here's another one. And I actually I made doll trolls because I just love trolls. And I just, maybe, we haven't come out, but I too was a both end, actually much more masculine than feminine. Um, Growing up, I was really athletic. I was a hockey player and a cheerleader. I was both. And so, and I'm the compliment of being both is I have a lot of vitality, which is it's sexuality is vitality. It's just like life force energy. So I have lesbians that fall in love with me as much as I have like I had on so the funny like thing about this, it doesn't matter what age you are. It's your vitality. So I had on this leopard print yesterday, and I had the mechanic coming over to. I have a guy that comes to my house, a mechanic that comes to my house. Can you believe that? That's just like the best ever. Just living in a small town, and he's like, "Wait a second, I'm going to get my Tarzan suit." And I was like, "Rah!" And he's like king of the jungle. And it's like so much fun to play. If you can play in like both genders, I mean, why wouldn't you want to play in both? Why would you want to put yourself in this little girly box where, I was a super athlete and, I was just like, I'm a very strong person and a very, forthright. So whatever you want to call that, I call it balanced. I call it a balanced masculine feminine. That's what I call it. So I just wanted to say thanks for the topic, because it's really good to kind of claim what you are, both end. Thanks. That's all I got.
I strongly agree, Lori, and thank you for that. Lauren, try again. Yeah, please go ahead. No, I do not hear you. I can read your lips. Can we all just read Lauren's lips? Because I'm really interested.
Telepathy time.
Yeah. All right. Well, James, I think that puts you up next on the list. Thank you for raising your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah. If you think about how much magic it takes to raise a child, it's like a lot, right? It's like a lot of energy. So the people that are joining fertility cults, they really are committing to a lot of energy, like a lot. More than, quite frankly, uh someone in my mode would ever consider feasible, honestly. Like I really thought that this was something I wanted to do. I felt like a failure for many years because I wasn't able to do it. And I noticed that I had a lot of prerequisites that other people didn't have. I wanted to raise a child in a certain way. I wanted to have a certain amount of stability for that, blah, blah, blah. I had to have a certain amount of right partner, all this other stuff. And I think I was probably just didn't want it as bad. And I think about people that just, they want to feel like they fit in. And I think there's a lot of Brenda and Eddies. This is nothing against the word Brenda or Eddie, but there's a popular song by Billy Joel called "Scenes from an Italian Restaurant," and it's such a beautiful story because it tells you the story of Brenda and Eddie and how they're the ultimate fertility cult. They're the ones that in high school they're peaking, not in a negative way, but they're peaking. They're literally just at the top of their game, and everyone is loves Brenda and Eddie, even though they have a horrid existence. They fucking hate each other. And it sort of was maybe probably more hope than I thought I needed. I don't think I could have even gone through it if I thought that I wouldn't have gotten married at the time. It was so important to me to be considered a part of the community in that way. The pressure is so strong, is what I mean. And if you start to look at what would the world look like without a fertility cult, I want you to know that it's actually been happening for a long time, because a long time ago, we used to send children to the factory. And at 12 years old, 10 years old, they're working for us. You're not having kids because you want to have kids. You're having kids because they're profitable. Because you can put them out in the field. They'll work in winter. I mean, they're incompetent as fuck, you'll tell yourself, but you'll get some use out of them like you will a good mule. And you'll be bummed if a woman gets born sometimes because you're looking for some strength around the house, or you'll be bummed when a boy's because you're trying to trade something. It's a commodity. And that commodity requires a lot of work, so it's a very different relationship. This is the 1G love versus 5G love. The I'm only going to love you as a child because you have a profit for me. There's something in it for me. So the end of fertility cult is, you ready for this? It's the end of child abuse. If you know how much energy it takes to raise a child, and you've removed the auspice of everyone has to raise a child, the only people that are going to want to raise a child are going to be dopers, the ones that really want to raise a child. And it's going to be a professional thing. They're gonna make their entire life about it. They're gonna do all the oatmeal, and you know everything's gonna be made right. Everything's gonna be right because they're not fucking around. This isn't trivial. And more importantly, there's nothing in it for them. They're literally going to be accused of doing horrible things because the kid's going to be able to say whatever he wants to say. He's going to be able to, accuse them of all kinds of stuff like that. Even more importantly, it's like Russian roulette now. You don't know what kind of kids are going to come out. You don't know how functional they're even going to be in a society that you had painted for you a long time ago. You don't know that there's a different realm that we haven't come to existence yet. I wanted to say this in the show today, but one of the reasons why groypers, I think, feel so groypy is because there's a cult of housing that said you have to grow up and get your own mortgage. You have to be thrown out of the house. That's stupid. You should never stay in your own house. You got to go out and create your own mortgage and do that all over again. And this is child abuse. This is adult abuse. The fact that we would leave our own home is completely back asswards. It goes against every single thing that's ever been taught in nature itself about what you should do. And the only way you'd have that is if you were in a fertility cult of self. That if you had a fertility cult of self brewing, maybe you would need to break away from the housing cult, the fertility cult, all the other cults to find yourself in this different place. And if you were, it would look a lot like Groypers would. It would look a lot like dissatisfied postpartum depression when you didn't really want to be in a fertility cult, but everyone else told you would be. That would be postpartum depression. It would be alcoholism. It would be abuse. It would be neglect. It would be divorce. It would be separation. It would be, hey, I'm going to go out and cheat on someone else because the fertility cult says it's okay. It says it's okay. Which means if the fertility cult dies, I think you're seeing an end of infidelity. That you're honestly live in a society that trades on your ability to be desirable, which means you would have a system where everyone's cheating on each other because you're living inside a fertility cult. What I'm trying to say is that the entire sanctity of sex, of making babies, of stargates, all this suddenly is clean again. It becomes sacred for the very first time because it's no longer necessary. That's when something really steps into the sacred, because you're doing it not because you have to, but because you want to sacrifice something in order to see this occur in your life. And we wouldn't be able to do that if there wasn't something in it for us. 1G love, I'll have kid, but I need them to be able to pick up heavy things. I'll have a kid, but I need to be able to get a better job because someone knows, well, he's a family man. And you know this, by the way, right? that companies in the 60s would automatically say, we need to hire, we don't need a college degree. We need someone who's married. Why? Because they're fucking going to show up for work every day. They are. It makes them dependable. It turns you into a special kind of being that we want to be here. Someone who is docile, domesticated, and more importantly, 45% of their vitality is being thwarted into something else. And this is someone you can predict. You can build a giant company with people like this, but you need a bunch of them. You need a bunch of people that most of their vitality is being sapped away from them. I'm talking about taxes. I don't think that it's fair to even say it's with kids, but I'm saying that if you have that much focus coming away, but you're still having to produce all these things financially and everything else, then you have a very stable society. And that stability is going to erode itself because eventually the stability will fall apart because you've got enough of that. You need something else now. We need cocaine. We need the 70s. We need all the free love expression. Even that really is kind of a push against fertility, isn't it? Because it's the first time where they're like, hey, you should make love because it feels good. That's enough. And that there's gone are the days where I'm going to feel bad because something feels good. That was huge. That took a giant conscious shift for us to even think, hey, something should be okay because it feels good. A Coke and a smile is kind of fitting that same idea. The idea is you could just be happy, man. That's enough. What do you mean? I could just wander around being happy? Yeah, it's called being a hippie. You just fucking go around. Your job is to be happy. And I don't know if you guys noticed that, but one of the hippie cultures, one of the most competitive fields inside of a hippie culture is which one of us is having more fun. Does anyone notice that? Because it's true. Which one of us is more hippie than the other? And it's a cutthroat competition of like which one of us is doing this better because it's the same cult. This is why I think all these cults are important. There's nothing wrong with being in one. You're in 7. You're in 37 right now. This is just noticing because it's showing you where your priorities lie because you folded yourself, you've invested your identity into the cult of fertility, the cult of utility, the cult of creativity, right? That if you weren't saturated in this cult, you'd stop getting up in the morning. There'd be no drive to really be there. So I just wanted to say that when you think about how much energy goes into a child, now you're seeing that maybe, I'm just going to make this number up, maybe 3/4 of people aren't focused on putting that energy into children. Where's that energy going to go? That's a lot of creative force. That's a lot of creative force that's no longer feels that it's being pressured into doing something that maybe it didn't want to do. This could be some of the greatest energy we've ever seen. It could be one of the most prolific, expansionary, Aquarian Civil War kind of motives that could ever happen. And I think right now it's a pivotal time to keep dreaming in that way, to keep imagining that 4-minute mile, because everything is just so electrically tangible right now, isn't it? Like it's insane how pliable everything is. And all this energy is up for grabs. You can see it right here, and no one's really wrong. No one's really wrong here. It's just people having to validate what they said was important. Maybe can't find the reason why it's actually important anymore. And that would be what a self looks like, you know? So again, smiles, everyone, smiles. This is Fantasy Island. Things are really, really going great if you think about it. That's all I got.
Sounds like, or you talk about hippies being having a contest on who can be the happiest, and I almost feel like I'm in an opposite situation where because people are trying to hold on to old systems, old existing systems, and Ashley and I are doing things that are in some ways slightly different. Our success is not wanted or appreciated, nor is our happiness, and I don't know what other people's stories are, why they don't seem so happy, but a lot of times I almost feel like the unhappiness is that like it's a contest of like, like uh, or I'm stumbling over words because I'm trying to say that I feel like a lot of people act more unhappy than they are, because it's like a New Yorker thing or something, where everyone's hard and got a hard surface because it's like to be happy is to be retarded almost, or. Um, so, Annie, I've been thinking about you so much. I'm so glad to see you here because I've missed you. So thank you for raising your hand, and it's great to see you. Go ahead.
Thanks. Three things came to mind. One was a phrase from Zippy the Pinhead comics, which was, "Are we having fun yet?" The other one was another one that the guys used to throw around was, "Those who die with the most toys wins." Whatever that, like collecting stuff instead of, whatever. And then the other one was, I can't remember the third one, but basically when we were growing up, which was, I don't know if I'm the oldest one here, but I was born in late 50s, and the thing was carrying on the family name, and there was a big unspoken and yet somehow pervasive feeling that you had to, if you were male, the male took on the family, continued the family name. And in such, well, we had three girls and none of us were given middle names, because the idea was you would marry somebody and take their name, and then your maiden name would be your middle name. So we had no need for it. I don't have a middle name. One sister chose her own later on in life, but to this day, I don't have a middle name, which is kind of weird sometimes. None, I guess, could be none. But this whole pressure of, for us, it wasn't, though. That for us, the pressure was to go to college. That's the weird thing, is that I didn't like, there was this undercurrent of my mom's femininity that was saying, you can do whatever you want, honey, which is great. And there was also no religion structure either, which is probably part of it. And so we were left to our own devices in a way, but there was also this undercurrent of, you're going to go to college. There's like the three siblings before me all went to college and have a degree. And so, we come from a family of educated people. So you must go to college. Okay. And so but there was maybe a little pressure on my brother to have kids. And then when he had kids, he had girls. So my dad maybe had this feeling like, there goes the family name, because the girls didn't have any boys either. So there's just like this lower amount. There was just a lot of girls in the family, and poor dudes. Just this. I think my brother had one time he gave my dad a card, and I think it was like this savior. Thank you for saving me from the estrogen brigade. He didn't say that, but that was basically it. Was that he was just surrounded by girls, and help, get me out of here, Dad. And my dad was quiet, and he didn't mete out all the punishment. My mom was in charge of laying down the law, except for the one time that I lit a lampshade on fire, and because for some reason I was experimenting with fire like I like to do, and oops. And so I got punished for that by my dad, and he was very stoic, and it was very strange because my mom was the emotional one, and my dad was flat. But anyway, just the whole thing about the pressure to carry on, and I don't see this very often anymore, is the family name thing. And it's just an interesting phenomenon that doesn't even seem to, like, nobody's even brought it up today. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think the survival cult, maybe that's a remnant of that survival cult.
Survival, yeah.
A much older cult. So it's still there, but it gets overridden with other priorities that are in front of it. It's really good to see you, Annie. I've been wondering how you've been.
I've been here. I'm just quiet.
That's fine. Yeah. Still.
I can speak to an underlying awareness, although I don't feel like it was told to me directly that I have to procreate, but I came from a family where I wasn't really aware of my father's side. I was more aware of my mother's side, and her father had 4 daughters and a young son, and they like 20 grandkids, or well, 14 grandkids, but a big family. And I can remember being very aware of the fact that I was the only Freeman there. But again, it's like, I also thought Simon May just said generation was a tool of the devil. And, I didn't actually think that having a family was actually meant to be my course. And sometimes I still think that I just fell on some crazy thread in the multiverse, like the 1 in a trillion, and every other thread, I'm not this person. But yes, Annie. Also, I'm just impressed by a family that gets all its daughters into college at that time, especially. I know college can be a mixed bag. I happen to be a person without a college degree, so I find such an education enviable. Although I certainly relate to the, it doesn't necessarily solve for everything for people like James and others and yourself who have college degrees.
I bet you proms won't be here after a while because prom is promenade. It's the presentation of the fertile. And so I bet you that proms, if they're not already dead, those will probably be dead too.
Well, in the South, James, they're very much alive. The
Hmm.
South seems to have a very a debutante like connection, but
Yep.
daughter lives in Alabama. That's like the prom is all of the grandchildren all went to prom by themselves. There wasn't any corsages or any of that. So I wonder what it's like in like the Eastern, or I think probably it's totally been out in California for like, probably 20 years. I think it's regional.
I love prom too, by the way. I hope you guys hear. I'm just telling you what I see happening. Like I freaking love prom. And I bet you that a lot of babies are made on prom night, a lot more that you'd ever know. And that's just the ode to that fertility cult. Like it's so pervasive that society is practicing that out in the open, but maybe you don't necessarily realize, that's actually what's happening. You could even look at the college thing as being a credentialing sort of a thing where you would be legitimized by other people, other certifications and things like that. And, luckily that cult has died pretty quick, especially considering what's happened with Harvard and Stanford and all these other universities that were just turned out to be dopers the whole time. So, but that would also be the certification would be this movement into the cult of self. So even that would be, it's all quite natural, isn't it? I mean, maybe I'm just painting the picture that I want to see, but it's awfully convenient. I seem to always find a hidden rung in this cosmology that says, well, that would mean there'd be a cult of, oh, look at this. Here's a cult of credentials right here. Everyone's in debt. You're supposed to natural to have $200,000 in debt from the moment you're in your 20s, but you have a piece of paper that tells you that you're worth something.
I thought Annie, it was really good to see you, and I was missing you too. You always drop some real good nuggets, and the fact that we're this kind of the same age, and I remember my parents sitting down with me and saying, "I think you really need to be a secretary." It was like not college for you. You're not college material, you know. And it was the best thing ever that they told me that because I got a degree, and you know, it wasn't like they didn't have degrees and they were like genius material. And the Irish immigrant was like, you just need to get a job, especially as a woman, because, you're just going to get married. So, you don't even have a middle name. So, that's the placekeeper for, the married name. So I really relate to, the different generations growing up and getting these different type of messages, even in, we're the same age, but Annie got, the I don't know, like you deserve to have a higher education. And I think that's awesome. And like I think now, like what James said about getting out, that was the thing that I think I did instill with my grandchildren is like get out without any debt. And then there's nothing wrong with a degree if you can get out without any debt. So it pushed them to get like this freaking scholarships and striving to get the best AP classes. And I mean, they were in college when they were in, last 3 years of high school. So there's a whole other level. I mean, it's another discussion on what's going on with the competition in that field now. So
I'll just find out real quick. I was on the other side. I was a disappointment, Annie, because I didn't go to college and squandered my potential that way. So, it's the any way you cut it. But for me, it was I keyed into the debt thing really early. And so I had credit cards and all that. And so I haven't had carried debt since my 20s, but that was a big thing for me. And that's a big thing where I'm watching with college now. It's crazy. And the debt relation to, like you say, what it's worth in the real world.
I can second that, Brad, as far as blessings that have actually been maybe something that was helpful for me in my life. Given I already had a passion for books, I can love books and read books anyways. Although nothing but respect for higher education and the accomplishment of that, and Lori and Annie and James and everyone here who has earned that. You have my respect. And also, lastly, I see we're coming to a close. Maybe there's enough time for me just to say that my junior prom, as it happens, I had my picture taken with my cousin. So, because I didn't have a date. So that's how much I like prom,
Yeah.
But we're coming up to a close, guys. It is just now that time. And Lauren, I'm so sorry that I didn't get to hear from you today. I hope we'll be able to hear from you next time. Becca, thank you for speaking today and introducing yourself. Renee, I didn't hear from you today, but I just want you to know that I've really loved what you and James are accomplishing on the radio format, and I hope to see more of it. Really doing some powerful work. And with that, if everybody would unmute and say goodbye, we'll close Dojo 276.
Like to teach.
Ciao, ciao.
Have a good weekend.
Everybody.
See y'all later.
Thanks, you guys.
Get some slow dance for them.